Hello, everyone. You are welcome once again to another SQL session. And hopefully, this would be another interesting time. In this session, we'll be dealing with two major basic concepts, I would say. So we will talk about DDL versus DML. Yep, DDL versus DML. Interestingly, um, the things we have been doing up to this moment, could cover a lot about DDL and DML, and you will understand that very soon. So when we say DDL, DDL is a concept known as data definition. Let me do it this way, and let me just maximize that. Yeah. So DDL means, are you all right? So DDL means data definition language. All right. Now, the major word here is this definition. Okay. So what this means is that it deals with the structure of the database object. Okay, so when we hear definition in SQL, it deals more with the structure. So it deals more, I wouldn't say more, it deals with the structure. Okay, more seems like it has other aspects aside structure. So it deals with the structure of the database objects. Okay, I would say database objects because it's not just restricted to tables, although in our case we would be focusing more on the tables. All right, but when we say database object, we mean the likes of tables, schemas, indexes, functions, and so on. All right, so all these are objects in the database, including table. So table is also an object, but our focus is on the table. Okay, so we are focusing on tables. All right, so when we say data definition language, we mean that the these are commands. Let me modify these. So these are commands that deals with the structure of the database objects. Okay, so that should do. Okay, so now when we are talking about data definition language. Examples of these commands are what we've been using: drop. So when you are dropping your table, or when you are creating your table, and when you're altering your table, and what else? So for now, these are the commands we have been using frequently, and this talks about data definition language. Okay, so these are defining the structure of the tables that we've been using this on. All right, so you could drop the table, you could create the table. So when you drop, when you create, when you alter the table, what you are doing is applying commands of DDLs. Okay, so applying DDL commands, that's what you are doing. Now, what do we now mean by DML? DML here means data manipulation language. In DDL, we are talking of something that defines the data. In DML, we are talking of something that manipulates the data. So, what it means is that this has more to do with a direct contact with the data, right? Because it manipulates the data. In this case, DDL, it creates a structure that could accommodate data. So it has no direct contact with the data, all right? But it provides that environment for the data, okay? But in DML, DML are commands that manipulate. DML are commands, all right? These are commands that are used to, I would say, create or modify data in the database. So these commands are commands that directly have access to the data. Okay, so they are used directly. These are commands, these commands are used directly on the data. Okay, you could say data, records, values. Okay, so it has to do with manipulating data. So when we talk of manipulation, you're talking of modifying, editing, restructuring. I wouldn't want to put structure here so it won't conflict with DDL. Okay, so this has to do with um modifying modifying the data. All right, so you could create with it and you could modify the data. And we've also used almost everything that has to do with DML. Okay, so now when we talk of examples, so examples of these are when we say insert, the insert command, insert, the update, delete, what else, even the select. Okay, so you select. If you check well, you realize that these are also crude operations, right? So it's not out of place if you say all crude operations, or just crude operations are crude operations are DMLs. Okay, so crude operations are DMLs. So they are data manipulation commands. Okay, so crude operations are DML commands. Yes, so because insert is the R in crude, right? Select is the C in crude, update is the U, and D is the delete. So you could just simply say the crude operations are DML commands. All right, so these deal directly with the data that's inside. Okay. All right. So before we end this session, I would like to introduce us to two things that looks very similar. All right. So now we want to talk about truncate versus delete. Okay. So let us do something here. I would like to go to, I want to see what's on my table. So let's do SQL and select all from employee. Okay, now we have 21 rows, yes, of data, and these are names of the employees of this company. All right, now let us do something. I do something like this, put my magic command, and when I say delete from employee, what do we expect? Expect that the entire record should be deleted, isn't it? That's what it means here. All right. So okay, let me run that. So when I run this, it tells me 21 rows affected. So I am dropping that table, right? Or let me say I'm deleting the content of that table. So let me select all from employee and voila. So it shows me just the column names. Okay, so why am I showing this? Why am I showing this to you? Well, let's see why. I would like to create another table, okay, so that I could also express, showcase the truncate command right here. Okay, so very quickly, I would just insert another set of commands, another set of values into the, oh, okay, so yeah, your table name should be employee, right? Okay, so I would just copy all these and paste it. Okay, so let me just do my magic command and my insert and enter. Yes, so now if I do select all from employee, okay, I would see that I have 10 rows of information. Okay, so what do I want to do here? I want to experiment the truncate command. So I would say truncate table employee. It says done, right? So let us see again. Select all, SQL, select all from employee. It gives me the same kind of information that delete gives me, right? So this is when we deleted, this is the information we got, just the column names, nothing inside. But here is still the same thing. So what is the difference? Are we saying that truncate is more like another kind of delete, or maybe you could interchange between delete and truncate, especially if you are deleting everything from the table? Oh, yes, to an extent you could be right, but I would like to explain that there are differences between truncate and delete. Okay, now when we say delete, delete deals with what delete does is to remove the rows of data. Okay, to remove the rows of data one after the other. Okay, so delete goes into the table and then it starts deleting or removing the data. Okay, so that's what delete does. All right, but in terms of truncate, truncate does not touch the data. So what truncate does is two things. Truncate would drop the table, and then after dropping the table, it will create the table again. Okay, so it will drop the table and then create the table. So these are the two processes that truncate does. All right, so when you check very well, you realize that both of them are doing kind of similar things, but they are different. Now you will see the effects of truncate during large data processing. If you have a database with say thousands of records and you want to, for whatever reason, delete the entire record of your database, if you apply delete, because delete is going to remove the rows one after the other, it could be time taking and it could, the optimization is not very okay in when you compare that to truncate. So for truncate, within few seconds, truncate will just drop the table and then create the table, and that is all. All right. So with these two processes, you could classify this into DML and DDL, right? So which one would you think would be DML? Remember what DML does? Manipulates the data, so it has direct contact with the data. While DDL doesn't have direct contact with the data, it just deals with the structure. Okay, so which one here deals with DDL and which one is a DML? Yes, so now if you called this a DML, then you are right. And this is a DDL. Okay, so this is a DDL command and this is a DML command. All right, so that would lead us into going to add some into our example. So that means I could add truncate as an example of DDL. And okay, we already have delete here in existence as an example of DML. So you have seen and understood the differences, right, between DDL and DML. So in this session, we have tried to achieve the goal of separating DDL commands and DML commands and letting you understand that DDL deals with the structure and doesn't have direct access to the data itself, while DML has direct access to the data. And we've also concluded that CRUD operations are also DML commands, right? And we've seen the difference between truncate and delete, their use cases when they are mostly looking alike, all right? So when you are dealing with removing the entire records of the data of the table of the database or of the table, that's when you realize that truncate and delete have similarities. But where truncate supersedes delete is when you are removing data from a large data set on the table. All right, if you are doing it on a large record on the table, that's when you will realize that truncate would be a better choice because of optimization. So this will be the end of this session. Like I said, it would be a brief one. Thank you very much, and we'll meet in other sessions.